Hello, Jim Howard here in Fort Worth, Texas. Today's date, it is August 31st of 2021. It's 7 p.m. here in Fort Worth. This is going to be a very fast video. I just want, one, I corrected it, sort of. I made a video, let's see, made a made a YouTube video yesterday. No, I think it might have been this morning. Yeah. Let's see. Where are you? YouTube stuff. YouTube stuff. Here it is. Hello, Jim Howard. I made this video, I think this morning, and I had the wrong date because I don't know what month it is. I've been having trouble for some reason remembering my age, and this since I'm 80, I've been thinking that I was 70. So when the ex-wife says, "No, you're 80," that's kind of a kick in the head. It's like somebody just told you were 80 instead of, and I've made that mistake a couple of times. Now I always, just not always, but over the years, like I would think that I was going to be, 36 years. For a year I'd be saying maybe, okay, I'll be 36, coming up. And I would be 1 year behind, so just not good at numbers. I don't think I should have been a financial analyst, and of course I wasn't a financial analyst. Thank God for you and for anybody that I was. Anyway, I got, today's the last day of the month, August, and I did this video this morning. Windows 11 is coming, and I put September 5th, and I didn't know what month it is because I don't work. I don't go to work every day like I used to all my life, and so I never know what day it is. I don't know what month it is, everything else. So anyway, I made the video, and in the video it says, I say, of course if you watch me you can kind of see this old man doesn't know what month next month is or something. But I corrected it in the title. I went back and changed the title where it said Windows 11 is coming on September 5th, and then I also commented, I think, down below. I did in a comment section, I believe, to correct it. So that's taken care of. So it's going to be a month, a little bit over a month, and then Windows 11. Doesn't matter. Windows 11 is very much like Windows 10. I mean, there's some improvements in the way it looks, and there's a few nice features. Okay, I wanted to clear that up for you in case you were wondering. Probably you weren't. If you're a follower, you were probably like, "Oh, poor Jim." The other thing I wanted to comment on, well, one thing I want to say is, well, this morning when I made the video, I'd taken a computer down. Anyway, I put my Chrome box up here, and I used a monitor that I talked about in one of the videos from, I think, the day before yesterday, where I talked about, man, there's this monitor that I have that I haven't been using, and it has HDR1 capability, and I comment about that's pretty neat because I went to 4K video, which of course it showed at 4K, but it also kicked into the HDR1. And then even when I played Civilization 6 on the computer, and when I even a game, a casino game or whatever, when it popped in, I think for both maybe, but I think for both, but for Civilization, a thing popped up saying, "Oh, great, your monitor does, or your computer and monitor does HDR1. You're going to see an improved, coloring." And that it didn't go to all, it was briefer than that, but it was neat, and I mentioned it. But so anyway, I hooked up this monitor again, same monitor, but I hooked it up to before it was hooked up to a Windows 11 computer, the Beeline. But I had to hook this up over here to the Chrome box, and yeah, it didn't give me the so I'll be taking it, setting this on the floor, back on the floor again. So that didn't work out. Now I could switch this monitor over and replace one of these two monitors. But the only thing, both of these two monitors have really nice stands, where you can turn the monitor, tilt it back, and go up and down. And this doesn't do that. So I'm just going to leave, I think, this. The other thing I wanted to, because it kind of riles me up, if you've been watching my videos over the years, and if you've been reading my, printed material before that, from time to time the news comes out, and here it is, again. Social Security won't be able to pay full benefits by 2034, a year earlier than expected. Okay, let me calm down here a little bit. Let me take a drink of my Coke. A couple times in the past in the news, I don't know how many times, somebody has brought this thing up, this subject up. And I don't know what, date they gave back in the past, Maybe it was by the year 2000, Social Security won't be able to pay full benefits. Or whatever, if there was a date like that. Now, I forget the exact numbers, so I'm just going to give you some numbers, but don't hold me to these numbers, okay? Social Security is taken out of employees' pay. The employer takes out, and let's say that it's 6.5%. Every job that you work, unless you're somebody who goes around, and there's a lot of those people, God bless them, I don't have a problem with it, really. Unless you're one of these people who goes around and cuts grass or trims trees or does something where the people can pay you in cash or whatever, and you just stick it in your pocket and you don't give the government, and then you're not, then when it comes income tax time, you don't report that. Now that's not, you're not supposed to, that's not right. But forgetting about those kind of people, everybody who works and gets a paycheck and has an employer, and even when my, at that time, wife and I, we had it for 4 years, we had our own tropical fish shop. And we didn't have any employees. It was us, me. And when I did the income tax, I had to figure in there and put in some, I forget how it was done, put in something so that money would go into, Social Security fund or whatever for me, for all of us, But the way it, let's just go back to, a regular business. your employer takes out, let's say, 6.5%. You don't get that. It shows on there, hey, Social Security and disability. I forget exactly what it shows. It pays for several things, but it goes into the Social Security fund. Now, your employer takes out 6.5%, and you know, they take 6.5% out of your pay, the same amount. You know, your employer pays 6.5%, you pay, and that goes in, and they take it out, and it goes into. Now, the way it works for those people outside the United States, and probably people in the United States, you know, if people in the United States can't figure out that you need to get a virus shot and some other things, then I'm not sure you can understand anything. Say you're 25 years old, or 20, it doesn't matter. That's coming out of your pay, and if you have some type of if you have a stroke, or you get, you've got a motorcycle and you go out and you crash your motorcycle and you can't walk, or whatever it is, you'll get money for your for that disability because of Social Security. Also, if you make it without crashing your motorcycle, which I think is very unlikely, because I've seen I don't know how many people, and I've worked with I don't know how many people, even X-ray techs. I'd be back in X-ray having to pull on some motorcycle guy's shoulders down so they could get the view of the that they needed with the X-ray. And then I would, the guy would be drunk, and he'd been in there before in the hospital from accidents from, motorcycles. And I would say something, and the X-ray tech would be, and then the X-ray tech would come out later that night to have a smoke outside, and I'd be standing outside the hospital. And I'd say something, and the guy'd say, "Oh, I ride a motorcycle. In fact, that's my motorcycle over there. I ride it, I ride it to work." And I said, "Then you're going to end up, with a disability or dead." No, I'm careful. It's the other person you have to watch out for, those car drivers or whatever. And he says, "Of course, I did have, this, and I have to take cortisone shots or steroid shots in my knee occasionally for my pain." Anyway, I'm off the subject already. But anyway, let's say for this Social Security, let's say you're a young man and you're a young man, you're married, you have a couple children, and you're going to work, and there's a traffic accident and you are killed. Your wife and your children have no, income coming from you, and maybe you work for an employer who, as part of, if you've worked long enough, the employer perhaps has an insurance, some type of plan, and they give you, which I remember some places I worked for, if I had died, my family would have got my yearly salary that I made working, plus like $1,000 extra. That would be a one-time, deal. Stuff like that. But with Social Security, you're a young person, and you have children, and you die from disease, or you die from a car accident, or you die from a shooting, getting into an argument over whose parking space, that is. Your children will get Social Security benefits until they're, 21 or something like that. Then Social Security also what goes in there also is out of that is uh, Medicare insurance. You know, that takes care of that. Although I paid all my life, into that, but I still have to pay $150 or something uh, a month, which comes out of Social Security, for that. Uh, but so it takes care. It's a great thing. We Republicans fought it, or for as far as Social Security is concerned, they've added a few things onto it. President Franklin D. Roosevelt came up with that. Republicans, even when Republicans from uh, back then screamed and hollered that it was communism and Social Security was terrible and they were going to do away with it. And they did that. I can remember as a young man. I can remember being, I can remember back in the time of uh, Presidents Ford and President Nixon and all of those, up until I think actually Bush. Republicans foamed at the mouth, called it Social Security communism, and were going to do away with it. And then Republicans finally, they're kind of slow in a way, aren't they, about learning about stuff, because they had difficulty getting, presidents elected a little bit, and they had problems getting sometimes other people because of their known rage and hatred towards, Social Security. And uh, so then finally they got their asses together, I'm sure in secret, put their white robes on and their hoods, and got together and said, oh no. So then they came out with, oh no, we don't want to do away with Social Security. What we want to do is give it to you, instead of that money going in that they take out, instead of that, going into the Social Security fund, it should actually go into your bank account, and then you could invest it with stockbrokers, you could invest it with bankers, you could invest it with people like that. It would be your money. If I have to explain to you why that would not work, you know. And then right after, and actually the one who really pushed it was President Bush. He was really pushing that, and one of my sons is very smart. He has a degree in accounting, for one thing, and he has other degrees. He's very smart, has a very high IQ, and I can say that because he didn't get his IQ from me. But he was saying back then, that's what I want. He was saying, which the Republicans, that was their thing. Well, Social Security, they were telling everybody, young people and everybody, well, Social Security is not going to be around for you. It's going to be gone. And you should actually get that in your pocket. Then you could invest it in the stock market. You could pay, whatever the percentage is to buy stock, and then you could pay, But anyway, my son said, that's, yeah, I want that. And I was like, oh. So I went through, telling him, no, this is just, they just want to get that money, and they want to destroy Social Security, and then they want to have, have that money, they want to get it from you. You'll want to invest in the stock market, or do something where they're going to get the hands on the money. And my son was, no, I want that. He was saying the same thing. He was saying, well, Social Security won't be here for when I'm, whatever. And I said, yes, yes it will. And then we had the financial meltdown. That was when Clinton was, no, Obama. That was when Obama was running. And don't remember if that was his first or second term. That's when Obama was running, and he was running against Senator, oh, the one that just died. That's who that was. So it was, I think that was the first election. And the economy, that was just about, it was just about Armageddon. It was just about the worst possible thing. Our system crashed because of all the shenanigans and crookedness and deception and everything that Wall Street and the banks and all those people did. And luckily Obama, who was running, he was running, he wasn't president, and Senator, the guy who recently died, who was in the war hero, who was in the pilot shot down and held captive and tortured in, a Republican, by the way. He was running, so it was those two running, and the president, Bush, I believe then, the election is in progress. Those two guys are, one of those is going to be the next president, and they came to the White House and they worked to get, actually Obama was the one who was instrumental, but credit to the Republican also. And they said, yes, do such and such, have the government, have Wall Street, have, bail out the system so that everything doesn't crash and it becomes the end of the world. Do these steps. And they did those steps. And that worked. And the Democrats at that time were then instrumental in getting things in there, changing things, the way banks did things. And the big thing was that banks and other organizations like that were letting anybody buy a house, and yeah, sure, you can buy the house and just pay $1,000 a month, will be the mortgage that you're paying, and you can pay that now. You can pay that now, and so you can have this nice house where normally you wouldn't have been able. That's what the banks and things were doing, because it was all because they know that they're covered, and stuff. And then what they were doing too was, get these people were coming in and they're saying, well, what about the future? With $1,000 a month I have to pay, is it going to go? Oh no, don't worry about that. But of course it was set up to, the next year it was going to be $1,500 a month instead of $1,000. Then it was going to be it'll be $2,000 a month, and it was like the banks didn't care, and so corruption and whatever. So the Democrats put in a committee or a watchdog agency to go in there, and the Republicans were like, yeah, sure, okay, well, yeah, we don't like agencies, too much government control, but yeah, okay, because it just happened, yeah, sure, okay. And so, this agency was set up, and then the Republicans in Congress, refused to, fund the agency. you say you need, 20, a staff of 20. No, you can do it with a staff of 5. Uh, you need the authority to issue, you know, such and such to demands or make these things. No, no, we're not allowing any uh, agencies to uh, issue things unless Congress approves, you know. I mean, they totally gutted the agency, and all the controls that were put in there to protect, to make sure this kind of thing didn't happen again, that banks and loan places and all that didn't do those kind of things. All those things were, okay, now you can do it again. Oh, I'm sorry, for 2 or 3 years you weren't able to do it. Well, you can do it now. Go right back, business as usual. So, now I'm thinking in my mind, what in the fuck was I talking about and where was I? So anyway, so now, this money goes into, Social Security, comes out of your paycheck. You're paying when you're working, and your employer's paying, and it works. Now, in the past, when these kind of things have come up, I have blogged, yelled, screamed, hollered. There is no emergency. All you do is Congress just goes in and says, that's 6.5% that your employer pays, and that 6.5% that you pay, we're going to raise that to, instead of 6.5, we're going to raise it to 6.6, for the employer, and 6.6 for you. And they did that. And then the news was, there's no problem. Social Security has all the money in the world. It's like, what was that, comic books when I was a kid? Like the ducks or whatever, and the rich uncle or whatever had the swimming pool that was loaded with gold and bills, and he'd be out there swimming in money, or he'd have a bulldozer pushing it around or whatever. It was like that. Then it was like, oh, there's no problem. There's enough money there till 2050, and this is like, I don't know, back in 1980s or something, or whatever. Oh, there's enough money there till till 2050. But what I said, when these things pop up, and Republicans have been talking about, they, especially during, Bush's administration, was, oh, Social Security is going to go crash. They're going to run out of money. So don't put it into social. We want to give it to you. We want to protect Social Security because there's not going to be any Social Security around. So you should have the money in your pocket, and we won't touch your pocket. No, that'd be your money, yeah. So anyway, what I raged about in videos and in written blogs is, yes, increase the amount, the 6.5 or whatever it is. Increase that a little bit. But, and I forget the number, but everybody who works, your employer pays 6.5, you pay 6.5. But if you are working someplace and you're making, I forget what the exact number is, it'll be approximately something like this. But if you're making $200,000 a year, oh no, we're not going to tax. We're not going to take 6.5% out of above 200,000. Not at all, no. And you don't have to pay in above 200,000. And what I blogged and said is, bullshit. if you took out like the people that were making minimum wage, who are paying the 6.5% and their employers are, if you did the same thing with the people making more than 200,000, like the people making 10,000 a year or 25,000 a year or 50,000 a year or something, if you did the same thing with the people making, when it went above 200,000, Social Security wouldn't know what in the fuck to do with the money. Where would we, where are we going to put the money? Are there any mines? It would be that there's, we got too much money. Wouldn't have known what to do with it. But then I'm a reasonable man. I am a reasonable man, so I even said, well, what you could do is, if they're making more than 200,000 a year, make it up to 250,000, 6.5% like the common person, and 6.5% like the common, like us workers, blue collar workers or white collar workers or whatever we are. Make it, so, you raise that up amount. That thing alone probably would have, taken care of the problem that they had. But then I was being just, I'm trying to make some point with some word that's the right word, because I really wouldn't be, being, I would be so just. And I would say, oh no, if people making above 250,000 a year, well, that would be so unfair if they had to pay like the rest of the people 6.5%. No. So I will be just. And they only have to pay 5%, 4%, 2.5% above the amount of 250,000. Something like that. Social Security would have so much money, there would be no problem with this crap of Social Security is going to be unable to pay full benefits by 2034. But, so just wait till now the mantra, the thing again is going to be somehow President Biden, he's responsible for Social Security is going to fail. There's not going to be, and so some little old lady someplace who knows how old she is, unlike me, some little old lady someplace who's going to be reading the CNN news or hearing it on the radio or something like that, she's going to be worried that there's not going to be, and of course, like it was 2034. Let me jump back over there. They say so it won't be able to pay the full benefits. Okay, in 2034, it's not like in 2034 the $1,150 a month that I get is going to disappear. Of course, I'm not going to be alive in 2034, but it's not that it's going to disappear. It's going to be in 2034. I might get $20. All of us would get like $20 less a month, something like that. But the thing needs to be fixed. But let's fix it so it's fixed permanently, and let's not have any shenanigans and any. But we now know that the American people are so, that a large number of them are so stupid that, and President Trump or whoever it is can lie to them and say anything. I saw on CNN someplace that Fox News, said that President Biden didn't go to Dover, I think it's Dover, when the 13 military people who were killed arrived at the airport that he wasn't there, and of course he was there. But the right-wing media, and I worked. I've talked about this before, by the way. Uh, I was blogging. I was doing streaming video before there was a YouTube or anybody heard of streaming. As far as I know, when I was streaming, I've mentioned this before. People came to me. I had to stream from my actual computer because there was no, you know, YouTube or any of the other things that were before YouTube. See you, see me, and whatever. I was signed up for all of those things too. And I was streaming from my computer. And I had a point for going there. I swear I did. Oh, yeah, what I did want to mention was that, well, I don't think I did. I was thinking, within, I think, the last week, two talk radio guys have died, and they died, from the virus. Here in the United States, I don't know what it's like in the UK, and I have a feeling it's not the same. Every every city. I used to be a shortwave listener. I used to listen not just to shortwave radio, but try to pick up. I couldn't afford a big outside gigantic television antenna, so I just had to use rabbit ears. But TV stations in the early days, when we would have like one, two, or three TV stations, in the city, and because of us being a Christian nation, on Sunday they wouldn't start broadcasting like at 6 or 7 a.m. in the morning. They'd start broadcasting like at noon or something, so you'd go to church. Just like they had the sunshine laws or whatever across the United States, where grocery stores and places, couldn't be open on Sunday, because we are a Christian nation. Somebody needs a time machine, go back and tell our founding fathers. Well, we don't have to go back and tell them. Maybe we could go back and get them. Well, we don't have to even ask them for a statement, because they wrote it out that we were not a nation, Christian or any other. They didn't want that. They were smart. They had a knowledge of history, and they knew what happens when you have religious groups running the government or whatever. But anyway, here in the United States, we have local AM, radio stations. And they've changed over a little bit, over time. When I was growing up, they were like in Kansas City, Missouri, it was WHB radio. And they did rock and roll type music. And I remember listening to, them. And then I'm sure if you lived in Nashville, or, you were a kid and you lived in Nashville or whatever, you were listening to a different type, and if you were in an area that was colored, then you were getting maybe a different, type of, you grew up listening to a different type of, music. But, times have changed, and so there are AM radio stations. I could actually, I've done that a little bit. Maybe I should just no, you don't need to know. You don't, just trust me. I could use this tuning program that I have and go to different cities, and especially go to the AM radio stations and pick those, and they're just AM radio stations that are Looney Tune, sort of like Fox News, but even crazier than the Fox News network. And They just spew every day right-wing hate propaganda and, uh, things that are not correct, and just put them out. And they're apparently they have a following. There's people who you know, tune to the AM broadcast band, and then when one guy has his show for an hour or two, and he stops, uh, like Rush Limbaugh started, that was his thing, and he would always be picked up, and as you go across, and others like him, and those people just sit there and they eat it up, and then of course these people are not going to say anything truthful. They're just going to say stuff that's going to rile up their, and they know too if they said, if one of those people was on the air, and if they said, okay, well, I'm a Republican and we're all, good Republicans. We believe in, financial stability, and we believe in keeping the deficit low. Look at the thing, Republicans, the deficit, can't, we can't see it, But then look at Clinton and Democrats, and they either bring the level down to where, there's no deficit, or it's that way. But everybody, like trickle down economics, Republicans, oh, trickle down, oh, cut the taxes on the rich people, cut the taxes on the rich people, and they're going to invest in new factories and everything, and then the money's going to come down to the working man. Does not work. Has never ever worked. You can look at the economics. I mean, the numbers don't lie. Fox News lies, and those talk shows lie. But the numbers are, trickle down does not work. Reagan tried that. Trickle down, cut the taxes on the rich. Didn't work. Nothing came down. They just, Trump just cut the taxes. Major, he cut the taxes. Big time on rich people. The Republicans were so happy, and the rich people were so happy, and nothing came down to except then Trump and the Republicans immediately, as soon as that was passed, okay, well, we have to cut Social Security, and we've got to cut food stamps, and all of these things, we have to cut those, because our deficit is so, there's, a big chunk, and that was that big, it disappeared, and then, oh, we got to cut these programs. It's just amazing that they can, go on the air and say that, and the people, well, yeah, I can understand it, they do need to cut Medicare and all those kind of things, because, well, you have to balance the budget, and let's balance the budget by making the rich pay, Anyway, these, okay, on the news in the last week or less, two of these, one guy's been on the air for doing this for 30 years. I forget where. But of course, I think his show was not just a local show. He belonged to a network. I forget. Some of those networks have strange names, but he belonged to that. And then they charged local stations. Oh, do you want to carry, so-and-so show? X amount of money, And so he was on in multiple cities. And it's nonstop, hate. So he just died in the last few days. He was on the air for 30 years. And about a week ago, he was doing his regular thing, which he did every day for the last, since the pandemic started, whatever, saying that the vaccine was no good. He wasn't going to allow them to inject a poison into his arms. He wasn't going to get the vaccine. and it hasn't been approved, and everything that you, every type of thing. Oh, they're actually planting a thing in your arm where you can be tracked, doing all that crap. About a week ago, he just died from the virus. And there's another guy, I don't think he'd been on the air as long as 30 years, but a guy who did the same sort of thing, and he talked about, they're not doing the virus to me, don't let them take your freedom away. Uh, I guess he probably said, I guess he'd have probably said, don't get the polio vaccine, don't get the measles vaccine, and don't get the hepatitis vaccine, don't get the tetanus vaccine. I guess he would have gone through the litany of all of those things. But he was going through the thing. And a week or so ago, he was on the air talking about how terrible the vaccine was. And guess what? He died of the vaccine. He died. I started to say he died of the vaccine. He died of the virus. I don't want to see anybody die. But some people are suggesting, and I'm not sure, I want universal health care for everybody. That's, people, the right wing. It doesn't say anything in the Constitution of the United States about, universal health care. It doesn't say anything about income tax, and it doesn't say anything about, a whole bunch of crap. But we need we need those things, and and what about life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness? I think if it's going to come right down to following, what our founding fathers, I don't think our founding fathers would say, yes, let's have 25 aircraft carriers that cost over $1 billion. I think some of the aircraft cost $1 billion fucking dollars and all, stuff like that. So I think I have covered the subject, right? Let me go back to the thing. I don't want anybody to die from the virus, but the way things are going. Well, one, in Texas and in Florida and maybe Georgia or whatever, children are going to be dying because you've got the governor of Texas saying that, issuing an executive order that schools cannot require the children to wear masks. And you have the same type of thing in Florida. You have the governor of Florida also. There's a lot of cruise ships. I spent like 5.5 years down there in Miami. Loved Miami, the beaches and the weather and even the storms, that type of stuff. But in Miami, I wasn't happy about the people. But I did discover something when I was going down there. I thought, I wish I spoke Spanish, because I always wanted to speak Spanish. And I tried. I think it had something to do with my hearing. I think. But I wasn't crazy. But the problem was the people who fled for freedom, from Cuba and came to the United States and landed mostly, and ended up in Havana. They brought their system along with them, and it must be a system of we take care of our own people. Even though those people became American citizens, they brought their business things because it appeared to me like, if you get elected to the school board in Miami, and the school board is filled with you know, Cubans. And then, okay, then you just, it's a school board, big deal. What is that, Well, they decide what books to buy. They decide where what company is going to supply us with vending machines in our school. A company that is, Cuban or has a Cuban, bunch of, who's going to pick up, who's going to deliver the food supply, where are we going to get, the food that's served in the cafeteria? Where's that going to come from? Going to come from, a Cuban, place, a Cuban company that has, and it's that way throughout everything. So they brought this system, I'm guessing, and then it's in Miami. And then I can't remember I wish I could remember this because when I was down there, I read it, I think. And for Miami, I think it was like the city council, like, the mayor and the city council and some other things like that. And it came up, well, so-and-so, he was the mayor and so-and-so was the vice mayor for 4 years or something. It was a small, it wasn't like, Jose was mayor of Miami, Florida for 20 years or 25 years or whatever. It wasn't like that. It was like he was the mayor for 4 years. He had a long term, 4 years. And then these other people that were on the council, they each served 2 years. And then the news said, and their pension is from this. And it was like, I've worked all my life and I get Social Security benefits of 1,000, actually it's more, a little bit more than 1,150. There's an extra, I think an extra 100 in there, which I never see because that goes to pay each month as an extra, because I already paid into the fund for, Medicare, but they also take out that and put that directly in there. But these people were getting benefits of, they're getting that for retirement. And then I thought, man, I wish that I had come down here years ago and I'd have tried to get elected to some position. Of course, I wouldn't have been able to because I'm not Cuban and I don't speak Spanish. I'm not sure if I told this story or not. I'm going to tell it again. They have a great, rail bus system. It really works well. I'm sure in other countries they have the same thing, and even in the United States, in some areas they have, something. But it was really good in Miami. And but anyway, I got on this rail system that takes you, and then you get off, and then usually it drops you off at some place, and right across the street is where you want to go, or you just walk a little bit, or the buses are lined up, and you get off the rail system, you get on that, and you go down the street, a few miles on the bus, and you get off, and there it is, and it's really great. I have a lifetime pass in my pocket. Actually, I think I took it on my billfold finally, but anyway, I get on the rail system, and there's a Hispanic guy sitting here, and I'm sitting here, so we're kind of looking at each other. And then the rail system stops. The thing is, we're sitting there, and then the door opens and this girl gets on. Very attractive girl and a very young girl. And I want to be careful here. I don't want to have you people reporting me to the Taliban. No, they don't call it the Taliban over here. The religious right. They're not called the Taliban. But I don't want to be reported. Don't want to be like Trump and those other people, that do bad things or think bad thoughts. But anyway, this girl gets on. And like I worked at a hospital, security at a hospital, where just before I came to work there, thank God they stopped. But the nuns, that's when they wore their habit. You know, they had their thing. I was actually working there when the Pope put out his thing that it would be up to the religious orders, the nuns or whatever, that they could decide if their people could wear regular clothing or had to wear, you know. So that was kind of interesting. I was working at the St. Joseph Hospital or whatever when the Pope put that thing out, and of course the hospital was a Catholic hospital, and there were nuns all over, you know, the place, and you know, with their habits on or whatever. So I'm working there. I'm out in the parking lot, you know, and then I see this young female coming, and I don't think I can tell you what I was thinking. No, I'm not that kind of a person. No, I can't tell you what I'm thinking. Anyway, I saw this woman coming, you know, out of the hospital, and I think I was thinking, well, she's got some nice, she had a short dress, short thing on, and she had some nice legs. And I thought, oh, man, that's, you know, yeah, she looks good, you know. And then she gets a little closer, and, you know, it was Sister Mary Teresa, and I go, hi, Sister Mary Teresa, you know. She says, hi, Jim. I thought, oh, my God, you know. Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. Yes, I'll say the rosary for that. So now, why did I get on that subject? There was a reason for that, but I don't remember what it was. And that probably means that, now, let me think here a little bit. Well, about Cuba. And the pensions and things, you know, things like that. Now this is, if you don't know, this is going to sound like, okay, Jim, you're, you know, in Florida, if you flee from Cuba, oh, I know what it was. No, wait, okay, I was on the metro system. And this girl gets on right there, and she sits down right across from myself and this Hispanic-looking man. And he was like my age too, not as old as I am now, but you know, still old, you know, old men. And she was dressed like, you know, if you were her father, probably her poor father, you know, if you were her father, you'd say, you're not wearing that out the door. Go put something on. And she'd be saying, but Daddy, all the girls, you know, and you'd be saying, go put something decent on, you know. She was dressed inappropriately. And she got on and she sat down over there. And I look at her, you know. And then I look over at this Hispanic man who's sitting there, you know, right. Wasn't next to me, but you know, on the seat I sat was like facing that way, and he was in one of these seats, and he was right there. Our knees probably could have bumped, you know. And he looks at her, and then, you know, then he looks at me, and I can't remember the little, you know, two old men, you know, who just gave each other a look like, I can't, you know, like something, you know, something like that. And then, I'm not sure if the train stopped a few times and then she got off or what, something like that. And then, I think, let's say that she got off, because we wouldn't have said something in front of her, you know. So she got off, and then he says to me, Donde el Duco Dango, or I don't know what he said. I don't speak Spanish. But I thought, I'll just nod my head, because I knew, you know, I just nodded my head and I smiled. And then, and then you probably know what's happening, you know. and then he comes back with, you know, down to El Telefono or something. I don't know, you know. And I nod. And then he does a little bit more, and then I'm, oh my God, this is so embarrassing for me, you know. It's embarrassing for me because I should have said right away, you know. The thing when the girl got on, that was okay. Two old men looking at her and then looking at each other and going, oh, you know, that was okay. But for me to sit there and so then I can kind of tell that I think he figured it out too, you know. So I looked around and then I moved across to another, you know, another bench or whatever. My grandfather, my father's father, you know, he had 7 sons and 3 sisters. He had his own company. He was a trunk maker, suitcase maker. And he made suitcases and trunks. And even when I was like in high school or whatever, he passed away in like 1942. One of his 6 of his sons were in the military service. And one of his sons was, I guess, there from basic training or a leave or something or other. He was there with him, and they were in the living room listening to the radio, and my grandfather, James Joseph Howard Sr., my father was James Joseph Howard Jr., and I am James Joseph Howard III. But anyway, my grandfather, oh, let me back up. Anyway, he, I think it was during World War I, I believe, when I might be wrong about this, but he had the trunk making thing or whatever, and the government came to him, not him, he wasn't the only, you know, all across the United States, came to suitcase makers or whatever and said, help us set up an assembly line and things for places, factories, so they can make foot lockers for the military and other things like that. And these people, my grandfather did that. And then after World War II, suitcases and things were made, you know, weren't handmade anymore. They were made in factories, and he went out of business. So he died in 1942, and let me go back a little bit again. He ended up, I don't know how, now I wish that my mother were alive, or she wanted to always tell me stuff, and I was like, later, you know. Wanted to show me pictures and explain things. Well, I'm busy, later, you know. But anyway, he learned Spanish, and this is before, you know, computers and before the internet, all that kind of stuff. He learned Spanish, and then what he did was he translated letters in Spanish, or things that he translated Spanish for businesses. You know, he would translate if businesses got communications from South America or Spain or something, he would translate it. And if the company wanted to send, you know, communications to businesses in, you know, Central America, South America, or Spain or something, he would translate that, and that's what he did. And that's not because of that, but I wanted to learn. I just, you know, wanted to learn because of shortwave radio, for one thing. I started listening to shortwave radio before 1955. And did it a long time. But I tried to learn Spanish, but I just couldn't. But one thing, when I went to go to Florida, I was thinking, I'm going to get down there and these people aren't going to like me because I don't speak Spanish. And I was thinking, I wish I could have learned Spanish because it would be so much easier and so much better for everybody. But it's really weird. I got down there, and when I started working security at a Dadeland Mall shopping center. All of those, well, one thing that was weird, and especially all my life, like I worked hospital security for 30 years. I was almost never sick. Almost never sick. And the year that I worked at the mall, I was nonstop sick with things. And I think that's because of the uh, culture or whatever that I worked at that mall, and I would come on duty, and guys would come into work with me. They'd be shaking my hand, even though we worked together. The guys leaving would shake my hands. The guy who just came out of the bathroom, security officer, would shake my hand. And I think that, and then they also were all those guys were going back to whatever they came from, to see their family and to take some money there or whatever. And then they would come back, and they would come back sick. And then we switched every 2 hours, and you'd be in the car where the guy was sneezing, and I was really sick a couple of times where I wasn't normally in my life sick like that. But let me finish up with this point, which was where I was headed. I got down there and I was kind of worried, and each one of those people who spoke Spanish would say it like the supervisor of the shift or whatever when I was working midnights. And I think he was from someplace kind of unusual. I mean, you think of, we think of, Mexico or something, whatever. I think it was like El Salvador or someplace like that. And so we were in the mall. He'd come over to check on me and make sure I wasn't stealing or something. But he'd say, he'd maybe talking to me, and I said, there was one person that had a little business, and they had a few computers in there, and it was like an office supply place, very small at the mall. And you could go in there and pay, I don't know, $1.50 or $2.50 for an hour or something, and sit and use their computer. When I came there, from where did I come from? That was when I was coming from Texas, I think. And I got there, and for a couple of days, my stuff hadn't arrived, computer and that kind of stuff. So I went over and I was able to log in and, do email over there and that kind of stuff. Not while I was working, I couldn't do that. But the off-duty police officers who were working security there, on Friday and Saturday night, I think it was, the mall and and security, the mall, paid for a police officer, Dadeland police officer, to be there in the food court area or someplace like that. I never saw them. They would come and they would go right back and sit down. Of course, they weren't charged, and use the computer for the 8-hour shift or whatever they were there. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. Like that supervisor from El Salvador, I think I said something about him. And he said, "Oh, no good. Watch him. They're lying thieves or whatever." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yeah, and I forget where he said, they're from Nicaragua, or they're from El Salvador, or I forget what he said." And I thought, wow, And then one of the other security officers that I worked for, a Hispanic, I'd run into him the next day or whatever, and he'd say, "Oh, you can't trust that guy over there. And then I realized, it was that every one of them did that. Every one of those people, I thought it would be like, okay, I know you're from different countries, even of course there's Brazil down there where they don't speak Spanish, they speak Portuguese. But I mean, it was even, okay, that person, they're no good, they're from, but uh, I thought, well, I don't have to worry about them hating me and ganging up on me because they hate each other. So that fear that I had of, you know, being the person that they didn't like because I didn't speak, Spanish or that wasn't a problem. They didn't like their fellow uh, hablas speaking people or something. Anyway, thank you for watching very much. Uh, I do believe that God, if you watch this video, or if you watch any of my videos well, most of my videos, I do think that when you die, God is going to give you some extra benefits, and so you won't have to spend so long in purgatory for your sins of uh, looking at a nun who wasn't wearing a habit and thinking bad thoughts about her, or seeing a young, innocent Hispanic girl who was scantily clad, which probably, being with your age, was probably, she'd have probably said to her father, this is why all the girls dress, Dad. But for those type of sins, I absolve you, and you will not have to spend time in purgatory if you have watched this video to the end. If you haven't, you might want to reconsider. Thank you very much.